Hello, everybody. Happy November 23rd, 2020. My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, where we talk all things talents in Connecticut. And on today's show, I've got a special guest here, the head coach for the Coast Guard football program. His name, Coach Grant, 21 seasons on the staff. He was 15 seasons as a co-defensive coordinator, 6 seasons as the offensive coordinator, and now in his first year as the head coach. Coach Grant, it's great to be able to have you on, man.
Hey, good to be with you, man. Appreciate it.
First and foremost, before we go over kind of the process of being able to play one game this season with what's going on with COVID and the pandemic and everything, I kind of just want to go into your background. Just
Okay.
kind of give me a summary of what led you to Coast Guard.
Uh, well, previous to before the 20 years here, whatever it's been, I was actually at my alma mater coaching. I was at Cortland State in Central New York State, and Coach George had just got the job the previous, I guess, spring, and he was at Ithaca. And I don't know how many people know it, but Ithaca and Cortland are, I guess I would say, bitter rivalries. And I was working at a football camp that summer, and I got a call from him, not knowing that he had actually taken the head coaching job at the Coast Guard Academy. And when somebody said, "Hey, you got to, Bill George left you a message," I'm like, "You mean the offensive line coach at Ithaca? Why is he calling me?" And there just happened to be someone working at camp who's also working at Ithaca, and he said, "Billy's not at Ithaca anymore. He's at the Coast Guard Academy. He's probably calling you about a job opening that he has." Sure enough, that's what it was. So I came down, checked it out. I met with him, believe it or not, Coach LaForte, who's still on my staff, who's also at the time was at Ithaca. Bill brought him along. Me and Ray had played golf earlier that summer 2 or 3 times. And I hadn't even known at that point in time that he had left or he was planning on leaving to go to the Coast Guard. So we got there. I came and I did the interview. Fortunately, I got the job. And as they say, the rest is history, I guess.
That's awesome. Hey, I mean, every coach's journey is somehow different. It's
Yep.
not a linear path. There's always different avenues to be able to go.
Yep.
Now when you got to Coast Guard, kind of how was that? Because when I was in college, I played against Coast Guard. I was
Right.
on the baseball team, and I could tell you every time I would go down to the Coast Guard or I played against them, I don't know, but it just kind of had that different kind of like, I don't know, like I always respected the opponents that I played against, pitched against, and such, but I just felt like when I was playing against the Coast Guard, I had to make sure that I had to be as respectful as possible just because of
Correct.
it's not so much the team aspect, it's the fact of what they're doing after the Coast Guard. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we got here as a group, we had a certain way that we thought we were going to do things, and then you quickly adjust and learn that what necessarily works at a civilian schools don't necessarily work at a military school. So over the years, early on, we changed quite a bit. The way we went about things, even the way we started camp, knowing that a lot of our guys didn't spend the summers like kids do at civilian schools, lifting and running all the time. Because our kids are doing military training. So you got kids that may be on boats most of the summer. I mean, probably half the team came back in really good shape. The other half, you really have to, during camp, try to get them up to speed as far as that goes. But the kids that you get here are unbelievable. They're going to give you everything they got every Saturday, day in, day out in practice. You're getting their best. So, and like you said, they all understand and know that when they come and they sign up, that they're part of something bigger than themselves. That they're gonna serve at least 5 years in the military, and most of them go beyond that to serve their country. So it is a special place to be. A special group of kids, year in year out, that decide to give a piece of themselves to this place. And you come to really respect after a while exactly what you're dealing with here, knowing that these guys, some of them will actually have to put their lives on the line for this country. So, the kids, people that we play against normally understand that, and they are very respectful of who they're playing against.
You talked about kind of the adjustments that as far as going, from one side of football and then coming to the Coast Guard and seeing it differently. What kind of adjustments did you have to make? Because I'm sure it kind of took you a while to kind of get acclimated to the academy.
Yeah, for me, I think it was you're getting used to people calling you. Normally, it's just, and they've gotten, I kind of demand that they call me coach, but normally early on it's yes sir, no sir, which you're not used to. Even the amount of time that you practice is not you have the day is so regimented and the way it's set forth, you don't necessarily get the amount of practice times that you might at a civilian school. So you have a certain amount of time to do it. So that may, as a coach, you may not say, hey, I want to do this much stuff, but can you really have time to practice it all? And you kind of adjust and tweak things the way from the way you would normally go about it.
When you first heard the play, whoever was the player, that the first one that came up to you and said, "Sir," did you go, "Oh, I'm not used to this. This is new to me"?
Yeah, right away, and it's not just the players; it's all the cadets here. And normally, I right now, I kind of, at the time, I didn't think I was that much older than them, but I kind of set them straight. Hey, it's just coach. If you say, hey, coach, I'll answer to that. Do you understand where I'm coming from? And most of them say, yes, sir. Again, it's just like, you get used to it. But they also get used to me. And I think you get to a certain point where down in athletic fields, and even in the phys ed classes, the kids kind of like that whole how rigid they are down, because really on the field, you have to make them understand that, hey, there's going to be parts of the game where I can't tell you what to do, and you're going to have to think on your feet. And I think in a lot of ways, athletics lends itself to military, because you may go into a situation in the military where you've been trained to do a certain thing a certain way, and things don't go as perfectly as planned, and you have to think on your feet to get yourself and your team out of the situation safely.
That's a great point, because I think, I've always said that I think football in a lot of ways prepares young men for what is the second half of their career, going away from football as far as life, a family, kids, so on and so forth, respecting people, understanding that there's different, cultures, that, so on and so forth. And I think that's a great point that you make, how in football, it's that quick thinking ability, understanding, all right, am I going to cut here? Do I go here? Do I wait for my offensive lineman to give me a hole, or do I just go right through? And the same as far as going into, the training and so on and so forth. You have to think on your feet, and football does that.
Yep, absolutely, it does. And the nice thing about the Coast Guard with the way they're trained and you see them play is that you can actually see growth from kids from year to year to year. So the maturity level, how it goes from when they come in as freshmen or fourth class to where they are when they leave as seniors or first class, it's quite dramatic.
Now, during your first couple years with the Coast Guard, did you feel like you were comfortable enough as far as understanding kind of what was expected, and also for you understanding, all right, this is what I have to be ready for as far as with the academy? Or did it take even more than that for you and the players to kind of come as one?
I think on the field, it was a little bit easier us coming together than it was for me understanding exactly what I got myself into and how this place actually works. Because even after 10 years, 12 years there, you're still figuring out things. And one thing about the academy is the leadership of the academy changes quite often. So you may have a superintendent in that thinks one way, and 4 years later he's gone. Same thing with the assistant soup. Same thing with the director of admissions. Those are rotating positions. And they're all military positions. So those things change from year to year to year. So it's always kind of you have to adapt to what the leadership wants. And for the most part, since they have the core values, I mean, that's what you're dealing with. And they've all been good people. So after being there for, probably 3-4 years, you start to understand exactly what these kids go through. And you say, why 3 or 4 years? Because you actually get to see kids come in as a freshman and go to become a sophomore, a junior, and then elite, and then, their senior year. So you get to see them go from this fellowship role to eventually taking a leadership role. And I'm not just talking about the football field. I'm talking about within the Corps cadets. And then you get to see them kind of graduate and see the whole evolution takes place. So it took me a good 4 or 5 years to understand exactly what these kids were going through.
But I'm sure during that time you were making connections and relationships with not just the administration.
Absolutely, especially with the kids. You're going to be close in a place like this. You're going to be closer, especially in a situation like being a coach where you're working. First of all, you recruit these kids, and then you're working with them day after day after day after day. You really get close to them. Even now, like you talk about the Merchant Marine game. You got kids reaching out from 10, 12 years ago either emailing or calling you or sending you a text saying just wishing you good luck. So you build bonds that gonna last well beyond the 4 years.
I almost feel like it must have not taken long for you and the players when you first started at the Coast Guard to be able to understand each other, because I really do feel like the connection was quickly, because it seems like you're the kind of coach that, all right, I see where you're coming from, so on and so forth, and things were just able to go from there.
Well, I think too, we took over a program that hadn't been successful over a couple of years before we were there. So we're actually trying to make a whole culture change there, and the kids bought in right away. From the lifting program to what we were doing on the field, to the way we would expect them to act off the field, which generally you don't have a problem with at a military academy. But the whole thing that we were preaching at that time, they bought into. And it took a little while for us as far as winning goes, but before we had our first winning season. But as far as getting good kids in and playing the type of football that we were trying to get to from the get go, the kids bought in. You get the buy-in. Like I said, with these kids, it's usually all or nothing. So if they're out there playing, you're getting the best they got.
Oh, I can definitely attest to that, because as far as the baseball side is concerned, every time we played against them, it was always 100%. And I went to Albertus, in
Okay.
New Haven. So
Yeah.
we struggled against Coast Guard. And every single time, like when I was a junior and a senior, some of the underclassmen would say, oh, it's Coast Guard, they're a bunch of military guys. They don't know how to play baseball. And I would tell them, as I wasn't a captain, but I would say, guys, take them serious. They're going to hustle regardless if we're up by 50 or they're up by 50. They just go, what, to the wall every single
Right.
time.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's been coached too. So they understand that it's a privilege to play a game, and we're going to do it the right way. So the first rule of athletics, first rule of playing is you shall play hard, regardless of what the score is, regardless of what the situation is. We're going to play hard.
And you talk about the privilege aspect, and I really want to hit on that because of the fact that COVID, the pandemic, so many athletes have lost their senior years, both in high school and college. Some have lost a chance to be able to play the sport that they love because their season is gone. And
Yep.
I kind of want to, before we get into the game itself, I kind of want to lead up to that.
Okay.
When did the discussion start as far as, okay, are we going to at least try to play a couple games, a full season, none? How was that?
I don't think there was really a discussion as far as are we going to try to play games. Once the NEWMAC canceled the fall season, we kind of had a practice schedule. We're going to go out and do some things, nothing too serious. But then I think the idea actually came from the superintendent, and he saw, Army play on TV one week. He saw Navy play one week. At the Coast Guard, we already have a testing program that's going on. And first thing they did was they brought these kids back in waves. And every kid that came back, they tested them. All right. The kids that were positive, those kids were then taken apart and isolated. They also did contact tracing. So those people were put in quarantine. And this is still going on. This wasn't something just done for football, but this has been going on since the middle of summer when they started bringing kids back. And so once they got everybody back into school, and which is, probably the main thing that made this go, is 100% of the cadets at the Coast Guard live on campus. 100% of the kids that go to Merchant Marine, they live on campus. So from that aspect, you're able to control or have some control over what goes on, how and when kids leave, those type of things. So I think that was the main thing. So when the superintendent saw Army and Navy playing on TV, he was saying to himself, well, why can't we have at least a game? So obviously he reached out to Merchant Marine and they said they were interested. So then it became how do we get this done? And Coast Guard was saying, hey, we have a testing system already in place. We have a surveillance system where they randomly will call people from around the campus, come and get tested. So we had a program already in place. Merchant Marine then jumped on board and said, yes, we can get this done. And once we figured out exactly the who and what and how of the testing and how it was going to work out, it was pretty much a no-brainer that both academies signed off on it. Probably, I want to say it was a good month and a half, maybe almost 2 months before when they decided that we decided that we're going to give this thing a go.
That's intriguing. I mean, when you have two people that want to get something done, they get it done. And I think for the fact that
Absolutely.
the game was able to be played, and I, before we, and I know I keep illiterate, saying I want to get to the game, but there's just so
Right.
many things to be able to dissect. You talked about the fact of now you brought back in waves. Is
Yep.
that being done, around other schools or other programs that you know of, or because I think that's something that could potentially work, especially with the vaccine that could
Right.
potentially be around very soon.
Well, I think it works for us. Again, you're talking about a military academy where 100% of the students live on campus. At
Mhm.
civilian schools, that does not exist. All right. So from that aspect, I think you would have a hard time. The other thing I think you would have a hard time. So at Coast Guard, we have 25 men and women athletic teams. All right. If another school, say at a civilian school, has that, and they're going to put priority over this regular student body on that, I think then you start getting into some legal aspects of things where kids are getting special permission or getting special privileges just because athletics. And at this level, I'm not sure exactly how that's going to go over. All right, but like I said, since we have 100% of our student body on campus, it's a little bit easier to get things done in that aspect. Um, kids are used to being there all the time. They come back to school, right? There is no, all right, I'm gonna get my off campus housing. No, everybody stays in Chase Hall. You have a captive audience, so to speak, and we did have a leave policy where we did have kids actually test positive for the COVID. They, like I said, through the surveillance testing and through contact tracing, if you would have asked me at the beginning of the semester, are we going to make it to Thanksgiving? I probably would have said no. I would put my money down and said absolutely not, especially if we're going to let kids off campus. And probably midway through the semester, it started getting pretty bad in southeastern Connecticut. So being out, as it is now, we have to tell kids, hey, put your mask on, even in the weight room, put your mask on, that they wear a mask if they're inside 100% all the time. So the plans and the measures that were put in place certainly helped keep the COVID and testing kids often. Kids were encouraged, hey, if you don't feel good, go get tested. They did that. And from I gotta be honest with you, from telling them that to the surveillance testing to the contact tracing, it all worked to be able to get this game to go off. And it wasn't just the football team that were being tested, it's campus wide. So you're talking about professors, the military, the students, everybody's a part of the surveillance station. So if you get your name called, you go in, you get a test done in the morning at some point, and if you don't get a call, that's good because it means you're negative. But if you get a call and you're positive, that means you got to self-isolate right away.
Do you think anything that the academy has done can kind of, and I understand because of it's the academy, like you mentioned, they live there 100%. It's a little bit
Yeah.
different as far as with other schools. Do you think there's anything that the academy has done that maybe someone else can take that they can utilize, but maybe just change it a little bit so it fits their agenda, or not even agenda, but fits their kind of testing ability?
Well, I think, and I'm not sure exactly from a monetary standpoint how much it's costing per test. But I think if you're tested, you have to probably to make it go off, you would probably have to be able to test people 2 or 3 times a week to make it from an athletic standpoint to make sure that when you're going into a game, we're going to test you 48 hours out and to make sure that no one is positive before you go into a contest. So the testing part is good, but then you would also have to stress to kids, hey, listen, you need social distancing. You need to wear your mask. All right. And the big thing, at college age kids, they want to go out and have a good time and get to the parties and that type of stuff. And in a situation like this, it becomes a big hindrance if you are part of the athletic program and you're trying to play games and you're trying to get contests to go off. Like I said, we got a captive audience. So even if they want to do those things, they you have to be able to get off campus first, and they weren't allowed to do that for the most part. Especially leading up to the game, 3 weeks prior to the game, the whole campus was on lockdown. So no one has left campus since I want to say the last week of October. And part of that is these kids are going home tomorrow for Thanksgiving, and they're not coming back until the new year. So every kid that we send home, we know that we're sending home healthy and COVID free.
And at the end of the day, I think that's all the families of these young men and women want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have them come back and be healthy. And you know, like I told you many times, I respect the Coast Guard through and through, both what they do at the academy in sports and then out of sports and then what they do with their service. I've always
Yep.
respected it. I will until kingdom come. But
Yep.
I almost really do feel like when you told the players that there was a chance that there could be at least one game played, I think each and every one of them, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like each and every player was like, I will do whatever it takes just to play one game.
Well, I think with our guys, especially football, there's such a mindset because of the physicality of the game. And when I called them in late July and said, listen, the NUMAC has just pulled the plug on our season. I think a lot of guys, if they were upset, they were angry, you don't know how to act. I mean, it's like you're a senior and everything, from an athletic standpoint, leading up to this one last season, you get to lace them up for 10, you're guaranteed 10 games to lace them up. And all of a sudden the rug's pulled out from under you. A lot of them had taken a long time, but they had come to grips with, hey, I'm never going to play football again. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, this message comes out, hey, there's a possibility for us to play. For a couple of our guys, they didn't know. They were kind of like taken aback by it. Like, I didn't know how to feel about this. Some of the guys, I remember they were told at a practice early on. Matter of fact, it was let out of the bag before it should have been. But it was a coming out of the Coast Guard, so there's nothing you can do to him. He's the head man. But when he told them, some kids ran in, grabbed their stuff, and came right out to practice. Other kids are like, I don't even know how to. They were still processing it, and that was like a Wednesday or Thursday. But by that Monday, I think they had a senior meeting. The senior players had a meeting, and by that Monday, every kid was on the field.
We had
at that point we had, I think, 6 weeks to prepare. Leading up to the game, we had like 6 weeks. So I had put a plan in place how we're going to gradually build up to practicing 6 days a week. Because at that point, we hadn't really done much. We hadn't really done much. We had done some Pascal. We had done some inside run, maybe twice. But we were only going like 2 days a week. I just put the pads on the week before. And I put those on just so guys didn't get hurt. Because, we wanted to start going to each other a little bit. But we hadn't really done much. So
when you guys were preparing, and more so the staff, and you in particular, did you guys kind of sit back like, guys, we're really doing this? Like we need, like, this is a special moment here. We're going to play one game where other coaches, other staffs, other players are not. We cannot take this for granted. We have to leave everything. We have to be as prepared as possible because this is our one shot.
Well, the one thing I would say is about my staff is they were all guys who had been at the Coast Guard before, so I didn't really have to say much to them. The one thing Coach LaForte just kept saying to me as we kind of ramped up and went from only helmets to shoulder pads, he was like, man, that felt like a real practice. And we went from there and we started getting to full pads. He was like, the tempo of the practice started picking up. So it actually felt like a normal time. And in this world of craziness that we're in right now, the only thing that felt normal was at 4:20 every day, the whistle blew, and we're coaching ball. And that was like really the only normal part of what we've done before that we were doing right now. The only difference was, we were leading up to one game. So I kept reminding the players, hey, guys, it's not that you're playing. It's like you got the privilege to play a game when the rest of people in this country at our division don't have got a chance to play at all. I mean, there's some campuses where football players aren't even on campus and they're doing everything virtual. So let's not take the opportunity for granted. And they did. They did. And I think they understood as more and closer as the game got. I think the players started realizing, hey, we got one shot to do this. I never really had to get after anybody in practice for not hustling, not working hard. So it was a lot of fun just being out there. But like I told them every day, we're out there practice. Like, this feels so good just to be out here hanging out, coaching with you guys. That, like, I think for them too, it took their minds off for those 2 hours, 2 hours and 15 minutes that we're on the field. It took their mind off everything else that was going on. So, it felt good to be out there, to be honest with you. It felt really well. It felt really good.
Now, just take me into that day, November 14th, day of the game. I'm sure, the energy was flowing. I'm sure as soon as you woke up, you were like, wow, I'm about to go coach in a game. Like, I never thought this was going to happen. Just take
Right.
me into that day because I feel like there's so many emotions going into that for both you, the players, the staff, everybody.
Yeah. I think that I was a little anxious. I get up early anyway. That day I was up a little bit earlier. Couldn't sleep. Um, I went to the office, got a workout in. And as the guys start coming down and getting on the bus and everything, and you could tell that there was a sense of something that was happening that day. Once we got to the game, it was a little different because normally on that day, there's fans everywhere. The cadets on both sides are filing in and the march on, everything that goes on with the rivalry and the prestige of that game. It was a little different because first of all, it was my first day as a head coach, game day, and I did an interview before the game, which I've never done before, so that was a little different. But I gotta be honest with you, once the game kicked off, it was just we just kind of by the middle of the first quarter, it's just another football game, and the difference is that now I have a little bit more control of what goes on in the game. Like, where are we going to go for it on fourth downs and those type of things. So that was different, but the actual coaching, the X's and O's of it, I mean, it comes back to you. So because you've been doing it for so long, it was just another game. Glad we got a chance to do it. Like I said, we were very, very, very fortunate to be able to pull this thing off.
How was the players? I mean, I'm sure their energy was as high as it could be from the whistle
Yeah.
blowing and, kickoff until the end of the game.
Yeah, you know what? It kind of reminds me of before we actually got into NUMAC. There was some time. There was a few years where we actually played the Merchant Marine Academy the first game of the year, and it kind of reminded me of that. Where number one, the anticipation of number one playing your first game of the season. And there's always a lot of the nerves and everything that the anticipation, excitement of that goes into it, along with playing your arch rival. And you throw that in. The one thing I wanted to make sure that these guys were, I told them after that first hit, the first series or whatever, hey, you know what? You just got to calm down. The team that executes the best is going to win that game. So, and I think they did a great job with controlling their emotions because they were flying high coming out of the locker room, and they calmed down. And like I said, it was a very good game. Unfortunately, we got the we were losing end of it, but it was an outstanding game, well played on both teams. And, that's what people have commented to me, like, geez, you guys played one game, and it was very, very well played. Not a lot of penalties, not a lot of fumbles or interceptions. It was just an extremely very competitive game. So I'm happy with the way the kids performed.
I can tell you, Coach, that even though the game did not end in a win for Coast Guard, I think it's a win for Coast Guard because the fact that for what you were able to do, both you and the players, the staff, the academy, the school, everybody to be as disciplined. I mean, think about it. It all started because you had the big guy upstairs watching an Army Navy game, and he was like,
Yeah.
why are we not doing this? Let me give a call. Gives a call. And just it started from there. And I think that's kind of, in real time, something that I think 5, 10, 15 years down the road, when hopefully this virus is away and gone forever, hopefully, I think that's a moment a lot of people will go back to and say, maybe that, even though it didn't end in a win, it's a win for Coast Guard at the end of the day.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the kids who played in that game on both sides who were seniors, a lot of things like you do in life, when it's well beyond you or you're well beyond it, you're thankful for that experience and that maybe you didn't. And I know some kids stayed on the field a little bit longer, kind of soaked it in after the game, just knowing that was the last time. But I think, like I said before, just being fortunate enough to play under the circumstances that we live under right now. When these guys are, 5, 6, 7, 10 years down the line, when they're still having a military career, they'll think back, right? They're going to come back to their class reunion, and they're going to remember, you know what? My senior year was that year of COVID, 2020, and we got to play one game. We got to play one game, but not one team in New England and hardly around this country got the chance to play. We got to play one game, not only one game, but we got to play against our rival. So I think it's something they'll remember for a long time, and it'll become something that they'll cherish.
Coach, I really do appreciate the time for you to be able to come on. And, once again, I think, bright future ahead, hopefully not as much stress on you for your second season. I think the fact I've told this to all coaches I've had on my podcast who are in their first season. Hey, if you can get through COVID, you can get through anything. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But, I really do appreciate you coming on. And, if you have an opportunity and if you see any of your players, just tell them thank you for the service that they have done, will be doing in the future. And, I'm rooting for them to be able to hopefully stay well and they can come back home in the near future.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Now wrap things up here in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. Remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent. I'm on a journey to find them all. Have a good one, everybody, and be well.